TIL Neil Armstrong thought they had a 90% chance of getting back to Earth but only a 50-50 chance of making a successful moon landing on the first attempt. There were too many unknowns in descending from lunar orbit down to the surface that hadn't been demonstrated by testing. If you have the time, I highly recommend this detailed explanation of the moon landing from the software perspective, including the infamous 1202 error code, and how using the abort sequence wasn't really an option, since it basically just meant splitting the moon lander in two and sending it hopefully into orbit to meet Collins. The moon landing was a great feat of engineering, but as the title suggests, a lot of stuff wasn't thoroughly detailed and relied heavily on the astronauts' judgment and training. Scary stuff. https YouTube BB1J2 emerged. Sure, Apollo 11 was a major feat that finally achieved lunar landing. But Apollo 8 and 10 had already gone to the moon and back. Apollo 10 had executed all the steps bar the actual landing. Now Apollo 8 went to the moon without an LM as a possible lifeboat. First manned Saturn V launch. First crew to leave low Earth orbit. First crew to enter lunar orbit. First crew to return to the Earth at translunar speed. Now there's some firsts for you from Borman, Lovell, and Anders. Oh, I hate to tell you. Knowing what we know now and looking back, we should never have gone to the moon back then with 1960s technology. The fact that none of our astronauts who went to the moon died is actually kind of miraculous. So many systems had to function absolutely flawlessly for it all to work, and the fact that they all did the first time is astonishing. Outlandings on unknown terrain are very dangerous even on Earth, but they were going to try it on a different planet for the very first time. It's an understatement that there were a lot of unknowns, and at the same time understandable mistakes were made. Eagle landed several miles long and the landing site was not pinpointed until after the mission. People forget about the other two astronauts. Neil Armstrong mission commander. Edwin Buzz Aldrin lunar module pilot. Michael Collins command module pilot. Buzz punched a man several years back for calling him a fake and coward. The judge dropped the lawsuit against him. These guys are heroes and deserve our respect. Honestly kind of crazy that they convinced 3 guys to get in a tiny box just to shoot them at the moon. I understand all the work and math behind it, but still, it's kind of nuts for someone to go, yeah, I'll do it and I don't mind being first. Apollo 12 proving that they could get a pinpoint landing was critical since it meant they could actually carry out scientific missions in specific areas. Apollo 11 missed their landing spot by a few miles, which is still incredible for a first attempt. They almost didn't make it to the surface. The lander was supposed to land itself but kept getting fault alarms in the guidance computer, so Neil had to land it himself. And they were about to run out of fuel when they touched down. Having played Kerbal Space Station, can confirm, getting to and from the moon is far easier than the landing on the moon part. I have a small colony of Kerbals trapped there from being sent to save other Kerbals trapped there. I'm so mad we didn't get them on the Joe Rogan podcast or something similar due to time. If anyone has any info towards him actually speaking on the mission, send me a link. I'd love to hear it. For All Mankind did a good job of portraying the risks and stress of trying to stick a landing on another rock in space. This is also a nice read from Don Iles on the AGC faults before landing. The way I see it, it's always a 50-50. Either you make it, or you don't. Source: I am not a statistician. If it was all unknowns, that 50-50 was a made-up statistic. You can't do probabilities with the unknown. Those guys are badass. But also every person at NASA contributed too. Let's not forget about them. Luckily for him it didn't actually happen, lol. Are there still moon landing denialists? If you want the lowdown, look to the bold journalism of Australian accounting groups. That must have been before he saw the moon set on Oliver Stone's sound stage. Didn't trust the special effects department to make a convincing product. For instance, what if a moon dragon attacked the module? You never know.